Okay, let's start with um we are reading, I think we are on chapter 4, text 17. Okay. So we are reading Bhagwat Geeta as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And we are on chapter 4, text 17. But before that, let's start with Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Sorry. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Amen. Text 17. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Let's read the purport. If one is serious about liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinction between action, inaction, and unauthorized action. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted actions because it is a very difficult subject matter. To understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its modes, one has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. That is, one who has learned perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord and that consequently one has to act in Krishna consciousness. The entire Bhagavad Gita is directed towards this conclusion, and any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant actions are vikarmas or prohibited actions. Okay. To understand all this, one has to associate with authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. This is as good as learning from the Lord directly. Otherwise, even the most intelligent persons will be bewildered. Let's go to text 18. One who sees inaction, one who sees inaction, and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. Let's read the purport. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist ceases activities out of fear so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the. I'm so sorry for my voice. The impersonalist ceases total activities out of fear so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in the process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. Let's move to text 19. One is understood to be in full knowledge whose ever endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He said by sages, sorry, he is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. So beautifully stated by the Lord. Let's read the purport. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of the person in Krishna consciousness. Because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities, it is to be understood that he has burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. Development of this knowledge of eternal servitorship to the Lord is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. Let's go to text 20. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertaking. Let's read the purport. This freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness, when one is doing everything for Krishna. A Krishna conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to the best of his ability and leaves everything to Krishna. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. This is the sign of akarma, or actions without fruitive reactions. Any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness, is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of vikarma, as explained herein before. I'll read the last line again. Any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness, is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of vikarma, as explained before. Yeah. Let's go to text 21. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus, working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. Hmm. Let's read the purport. A Krishna conscious person does not expect good or bad results in his activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that because he is part and parcel of the Supreme, the part played by him is not his own activity, but is only being done through him by the Supreme, because he is part and parcel of the Supreme. When the hand moves, this is very interesting. When the hand moves, it does not move out of its own accord, but by the endeavor of the whole body. A Krishna conscious person is always a Krishna conscious person is always dovetailed with the supreme desire, for he has no desire for personal sense gratification. He moves exactly like a part of a machine. As a machine part requires oiling and cleaning for maintenance, so a Krishna conscious man maintains himself by his work just to remain fit for action in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. He is therefore immune to all the reactions of his endeavors. Like an animal, he has no proprietorship even over his own body. A crucial proprietor of an animal sometimes kills the animal in his possession. Yet the animal does not protest, nor does it have any real independence. A Krishna conscious person fully engaged in self realization has very little time to falsely possess any material object. For maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. Again, I repeat, for maintaining body and soul, he does not require unfair means of accumulating money. He does not then become contaminated by such material sins. He is free from all reactions to his action. Let's move to text 22. He who is satisfied with gain which comes from its own accord, I repeat, he who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Let's read the purport. A Krishna conscious person does not make much endeavor even to maintain his body. He is satisfied with gains which are obtained of their own accord. He neither begs nor borrows, but he labors honestly as far as is in his power and is satisfied with whatever is obtained by his own honest labor. He is therefore independent in his livelihood. He does not allow anyone's service to hamper his own service in Krishna consciousness. However, for the service of the Lord, he can participate in any kind of action without being disturbed by the duality of the material world. The duality of the material world is felt in terms of heat and cold, or misery and happiness. A Krishna conscious person is about duality because he does not hesitate to act in any way for the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is steady both in success and in failure. These signs are visible when one is fully in transcendental knowledge. That's right. Mhm. Let's move to text 23. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Let's read the purport. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is sorry. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is free from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person, Vishnu Krishna. The resultant reactions to all such work certainly merge into transcendence and one does not suffer material effects. Let's move to text 24. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Let's read the purport. This seems to be a little complicated. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. So, when you do activities under Krishna consciousness, so what is that? That means that whatever we are doing is for the will because it is willed by the God. That's why things are happening with me. Sometimes we say that why this is happening with me. But we have to surrender in the state that maybe this is what Krishna wants me to go through. So I will go through readily. So even when we are working, we are doing kitchen. We are doing some kitchen stuff. We are doing some household stuff, or we are going down. We are getting things. All those actions. If we understand that we are being made to do for Krishna has ordered them to do, then a lot of our activities become very pious, and we get the approach of dealing with people in a very good way. So, even if I'm doing jhadu of my house, I feel that I'm doing it for Krishna. Krishna wants me to do, that's why I'm doing. So I will do it with such um, passion and such dedication. You know, let's read the purport. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to the spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just the principle of Krishna consciousness is described. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere, and yet he has to get out of such an environment. This process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. For example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth here in the Gita. This process is generally known as yagna or activities in brackets sacrifices simply meant for satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu alone, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahma or Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahma Jyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in the Brahma Jyoti, but when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, is Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, the contributor, and the result are all combined together, Brahman or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter, dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Yeah, yeah. Matter, dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Okay. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yagna or sacrifice for the absolute. In that condition of the spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the absolute, the Supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Everything is Krishna consciousness. And it ultimately becomes Krishna conscious also. The result also becomes Krishna conscious. So everything is spiritualized if only we have the consciousness. Let's move to text 25. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some of them offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. Let's read the purport. As described above, a person engaged in discharging duties in Krishna consciousness is called a perfect yogi or a first class mystic. But there are others also who perform similar sacrifices in the worship of demigods, and still others who sacrifice to the Supreme Brahman or the impersonal feature of the Supreme Law. So there are different kinds of sacrifices in terms of different categories. Such different categories of sacrifice by different types of performers only superficially demark varieties of sacrifice. Factually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, who is also known as Yagna. All the different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within two primary divisions, namely sacrifice of worldly possessions and sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. Those who are in Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possessions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others who want some temporary material happiness sacrifice their material possessions to satisfy demigods such as Indra, the sun god, etc. And others who are impersonalist sacrifice their identity by merging into existence of impersonal Brahman. The demigods are powerful living entities appointed by the Supreme Lord for the maintenance and supervision of material functions like the heating, watering, lighting of the universe. Those who are interested in material benefits worship the demigods by various sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals. Like since today is Diwali and tomorrow is going to be Lakshmi Pujan. So Lakshmi Pujan is one kind of yagna or sacrifice for material opulence, right? They are called Bhava Ishvara Vadi or believers in many gods. But others who worship the impersonal feature of the absolute truth and regard the forms of the demigods as temporary sacrifice their individual selves in the supreme fire and thus end their individual existence by merging into the existence of the Supreme. Such impersonalists sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation to understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme. In other words, the fruitive workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices his material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the Supreme. For the impersonalist, the fire altar of sacrifice is the Supreme Brahman, and the offering is the self being consumed by the fire of Brahman. The Krishna conscious person, like Arjun, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus all his material possessions, as well as his own self, everything is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus, he is the first class yogi, but he does not lose his individual existence. Yes. I think we can finish text 26. It's a small one. Text 26. Some, some, the unadulterated brahmacharis sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So beautifully. So I've heard of stories where there are people who want to get into Krishna consciousness have have by themselves you know uh, uh, hurt their eyes or cut their eyes. So because they feel that by seeing they are losing the Krishna consciousness, so they want to sacrifice their eyes. So there are some Krishna conscious people or brahmacharis who have given away them their own body parts so that they don't get. But that is not the way to achieve Krishna consciousness. You cannot ever, for example, this is similar to like If I'm in a very big problem in life and I'm scared of it, and if I commit suicide, you've just defeated the purpose of life, right? The purpose of your life was to face that problem and overcome it. That's what Krishna wanted you to do. But what you did instead, you gave up the life itself. So that is like, that is the way, this is not being Krishna conscious. But we have to overcome it with our mental strength. Let's read the purport. The members of the four divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, the grahast, the vanaprastha, and sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the four orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharis or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification, right? A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is a basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Hare Namanu Kirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification, we have some license, perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, meat eating are general tendencies of human society. But a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society because that is the way for restricted sex life. This restricted, unattached sex life is also a kind of yagna because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life. Let's end here with Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna and happy Diwali.